Seahawks lose another one, this time at home to the Niners. We got a lot of things to get to here, and we're gonna gather our thoughts. And on the other side, we're gonna break it all down.
Well, I'm the best corner in the game.
Look at this run. What a run. Get off me.
DK.
Yes, sir.
Hey, it's John Schneider with the Seattle Seahawks.
And Washington's got away. Leon Wilson with a catch. Smith and Jimbo. The Seahawks are going to host the NFC Championship.
Every year, the NFL does. Is it going to be another 9 and 8?
Players who have got to finish something.
They have to fix the offensive
Part of his
line.
success and part of
Ambition of being the LOB
Want to hear? That's trading DK Metcalf.
Make him aggressive.
This is the Hawks Zone Rundown with Ryan and Bryce.
This is the Hawks Zone Rundown, and we're coming to you just after the game at Lumen Field. 49ers 36, Seahawks 24. And guys, before we get to all of that, though, we want get your questions in here, get your comments in here. We're going to try to go a little back and forth here in the latter half. And if you haven't already and you've been watching the channel, go down, hit the sub button, and like the video, share the video, helps the channel out. So other than that, let's get down to business. 36-24 Niners. And Bryce, I'm going to say it right now. I'll get your thoughts on the game. But, man, that was tough, man. It was different than the Giants game. You know, you got an opponent, obviously a divisional game, but it just wasn't what we expected. It was all three phases. You know, we can talk offense, defense. I mean, there were some good things that I liked from the offense, but really early on, man, just nothing. They really did nothing. And then, you know, right out of the gate, you know, the turnover, the interception, and, you know, the biggest thing, man, to me is, again, you're losing the turnover battle. 3-0. You, again, didn't create any turnovers. You just that's really hard to win in the NFL.
No, man, you're dead right. And I honestly felt this game to me didn't feel any different than our games with the 49ers the last 5 that we've had with them. It was the same story. We got beat in the same areas. We made the same mistakes. And it's just kind of the same old song and dance. And the thing I'll say is I know a lot of people are going to start, you know, calling for the coaching staff and saying, oh, this coaching staff, I doubt it. I don't think it's the right one. We got to remember, if you look at this roster, and this is something you and me during the game we're talking about, there is so much Pete Carroll still on this roster in players, in Jaron Reeds. Love the guy. Great Seahawk for a long time. Does not fit the scheme well. There's a lot of guys like that don't fit this scheme. And what is now coming through is how badly constructed this roster has been and how far we still are from the 49ers. We kept kidding ourselves the last couple of years being like, oh, we're getting closer because we got a JSN and we got a Witherspoon. We do not have it in the trenches yet. And I don't think it's we're Byron Murphy away from competing with this. That's not something we saw. Our linebacker play was horrible tonight. Baker especially. Like, I don't know that he's that much better than Tyrese Knight getting these reps right now. And that's where there's things for me where I start to go like, when are we going to start seeing these young guys play? Because these veterans that are here on these one-year deals are not doing it. Like Lincoln Tomlinson tonight. Again, that middle of that offensive line is a dumpster fire. We talk about, we want to run the ball. And I will give Grubb this. The balance looked a little bit better tonight. We didn't see the results we wanted. But it's hard when your interior of your offensive line is getting its ass kicked, play in and play out, whether it's a pass or a run. So if he's going to have success throwing the ball with more chunk plays, he's going to risk it. And that's what we're seeing right now. But the one thing I'm going to say, man, and I'm going to eat some crow for this, and I'm one person that will do it. A couple weeks ago, I said we needed to give Geno his contract. He was playing at an elite level. I made that statement. I believe it was after the Dolphins game. And I got to roll that back because, yes, he played well in the Detroit game, but Geno, I think, is always going to be good, but not great. And that's what you need at a point with your quarterback, is the guy that can have those moments consistently of greatness. I just don't see it. And there were issues tonight that came out with Gino. You can see the one thing where he's like, "What the hell are y'all doing?" And there was one thing that I found interesting, and people may say that,
The iPad smashing him across his head.
yeah. And then
Like,
there was the other thing though, where DK came off in that first half or first quarter, and he was on the headset and he was mouthing, I guess, to
probably
Grub,
talking to
whoever was
Grub.
upstairs. And most interactions I've ever seen with most quarterbacks, when there's an issue with your wide receiver one or whoever, you
Guys are
guys
talking.
cool off and then you sit together on the bench and try and
Yeah.
figure it out.
Yeah, it didn't happen
D-
again.
DK went and sat with Sam Howell and
Mm.
was talking with Sam Howell.
Body
And
language
I'm not,
isn't good.
well, and I'm not saying like, oh, they're, DK hates Gino or anything. It's
No.
just an interesting thing to do when you're having issues with QB1 is to go sit with QB2. It was just an interesting interaction. And like, there's something that's not right there because it doesn't look like it's been right for a while, the way that they're
Yeah.
acting, their body language and stuff.
Yeah, that's what I'm getting from it. It's not 1 or 2 games. Because that, like you said, that's not normal. That wouldn't be like, hey, things have just been smooth for the last whatever. Even if you go back a season or two, I think you're seeing the frustration out of DK. You're seeing that out of Gino. Something is not clicking that we don't know about, and it is interesting because, yeah, like you said, hey man, hey, we got some time. Come over here. What are you seeing? Let's QB1. Wide receiver one, like let's get this on track. I know you want the ball. This is what's going on. Whatever, we're gonna make it happen. But it was like, and we kind of caught it 2 weeks in a row now, right? DK sulking on the sideline, and I love DK. I still think, I mean the other thing too. You talk about the interior line. It was sloppy, man. It was like, is this how? I don't expect them to be on, like, okay, if you're missing assignments because we're not on, maybe you don't have some of the personnel, or we haven't learned all of Mike's system, but the sloppiness, losing it, the special teams, D Williams scares the hell out of me. You even look when they talk about when he tipped it off his thumb, when that initially happened, he lays on the ground. Now, if you're that close, that's an opportunity. You might want to just get up and try to pounce on the football. Because, I mean, when you look at the replay, it touched his hand. So I'm just saying, I'm not sold on that guy. And I want to see a different dude on special teams. I don't know what he's bringing to the table. And Chenault, like, yeah, he took it to the house after. But, we're losing the football. Gino's throwing interceptions. We're just sloppy. That to me is how are you prepared? Now, here's the other thing. Granted, I will give him this: 3 games in 10 days. That's a lot of football. So some of the sloppiness that might happen, but it's 3 in a row now against one team that's inferior, really.
Yeah.
And, maybe they're better than their record of 1-3, but tonight San Francisco didn't show me that much. I mean, they're having a lot of struggles themselves. It's not like Brock Purdy came and lit it up. But we were just missing assignments. That one where Kittle just sort of floated by Baker. Like, who are you picking up? It was just like the Debo touchdown was like, come on. It just that was just mental errors and sloppy play is how we got beat. And again, we need to create turnovers, man. Like, we're not there.
We do.
Like, come
No,
on.
but the thing with the defense tonight, it didn't look any different to me than when Pete was running the defense, how they got diced
Right.
up for the majority of the night. It really didn't. It looked the same way. Guys are still running open. And I think this is more of a Pete and John Schneider roster construction issue. We were talking about it off air before we came on. There are so many issues with this team that are player personnel driven.
For sure.
And I think this is going to take, and this is the one thing I'm going to tell everybody with this coaching staff, Grubb included, Scott Huff, really look besides the draft of who they got to draft as their first group of players, and then the free agents they brought in, which weren't a lot.
No.
Realistically, wasn't a lot of guys. They haven't had the time yet to get their type of players in this building, in this scheme, in this, iteration of the Seahawks. There is so much carryover from what John Schneider and Pete Carroll did prior that they're going to have to deal with this all year. And I think this is where we have to temper our expectations even more. This team may be a sneak in wild card playoff team at best.
Right.
because we're nowhere near the 49ers. This is the weakest I think the 49ers have been in 5 years.
Well, that's what I'm saying. That's
Yeah.
my point. They didn't do anything tonight. Like
No.
what besides the corner pass in the end zone to Kittle, which was a nice
Yeah.
throw. What else did Purdy do today? I
Yeah,
mean, the
exactly.
floater to Debo for 76. That I mean, anybody could have done that. Like he didn't do anything great. He didn't make any mistakes really. He didn't turn the ball over. He didn't have an interception. I'll give him that. But he didn't come in here and light us up. You know, there was times where we had some pressure on him. Again, didn't get enough pressure on him. So like you said, I agree with that 100%. Man, maybe this 49ers team will get rolling. Yeah, CMC to me is a big piece. If they don't get him back, which you know they can say all they want, they might not get him back all year if you got two bad Achilles. But this is a Niners team that is for the taking right now, and you just let them come in your house again. A thing we talked about, like. We knew it was going to be loud the first game of the season because it's brand new. And then you knew it was going to be loud again. But now it's going to be loud because you're not. I don't know. I mean, now fans got to be sitting like, I don't think it's going to be as loud unless they get on a roll here because they got to go on the road to Atlanta unless they get on a roll. But right now, it's like, yes, if you're a Seahawks fan going to Lumen, you're like, again, we're back to no home field advantage. It didn't feel like there was any home field advantage again tonight. That's another thing.
No, you're right. It really didn't. And honestly, like let's just dive into it this way. Let's take a look at the offense tonight. Okay.
Yeah, let's start with the offense.
We'll start with the offense because we know the defense has got its issues. But if you really look at that offense, there's a lot of issues from the interior of that O-line, which when we had Mookie Alexander on our preview show of this game, they haven't really dealt with the guard position since Steve Hutchinson. I went back and looked today about what our guard situation has been. It's been journeyman left, journeyman right. Like they've never fully addressed that position properly. And we can even go back to when we did our Seahawks all-time team. We put J.R. Sweezy on that because our guards have been so bad. They have to invest in that. And that's the thing that's driving me a bit nuts is you look at where the NFL has gone with D-tackle talent. Look at the guy we took this year in the draft. Is a X-factor type of D-tackle. He is putting pressure in the middle of the pocket.
Yep.
And I just look at it and I go, why aren't we addressing the offensive side?
Right.
This whole team on offense needs a massive kind of look in the mirror, figure out what we're going to do. But I'll say this about Geno. I've been a big Geno guy. I thought Geno was good. We both have been. But I said in the offseason, and some people have called me on it, which is fine, that I said, hey, if Geno starts to struggle, there's a chance that there could be a competition throughout the season maybe where Hal gets some playing time because this regime isn't tied to him like Pete was.
And you might want to see what you got if this season gets away from you. I think right now it's too early, but
right.
You know what I mean? If all of a sudden they say they lose a couple more, right?
Yeah,
I think it depends because right now, like if you look at it, if you're saying you're 3-3, you're technically you're still tied for first.
You're still tied for first.
Niners got the head-to-head, but like you're both 3-3. But yeah, I agree. I think you if they go down a hole where because you might want to see what you got in Hal. You can say, well, we saw what we had last year when he came in our house again. Yeah, Hal went against the 31st ranked run defense, and we've seen backup quarterbacks come in time and time again and shred us. So to me, that doesn't tell me anything.
And the thing for me is like we talk about on our offense, the interior line. We've had Aaron Donald in this division for 10 plus years when he was playing for the Rams. The Niners had Armstead, they had Buckner. It isn't like we've never had interior defensive talent in this freaking division. And we've yet negated actually dealing with it as an organizational point. This is the first year we've truly drafted a guard in Christian Haynes. We're moving a right tackle in Lamea to left guard and trying to make him into a guard. Like, you need to address these areas, especially with the type of offense that you knew you were going to probably run with Ryan Grubb, which was going to attack the deep part of the field. You need time to do that. You need to be able to run the ball and establish some sort of an offensive identity through the run game to allow for those deep shots to take. Exactly what the 49ers do. Kyle Shanahan runs the ball to open up the Debo on the overs and the Kittles and the Juwan Jennings and the Brandon Ayuk's. Like, okay, and I see Drew Sports saying Bradford was drafted last year in the third. Bradford has not an answer. He is a backup guard at best. He is not someone that you, as a third rounder, in the case of Bradford, he fit the old regime style of what Solari and that Dickerson regime wanted to do. They haven't addressed top end talent for that position yet, whether it's free agents even. We should be going out and looking in the free agent market too to address this offensive line. We have to come up with some sort of idea of what this interior O-line. You've got Cross, potentially you got Lucas coming back. Potentially, we'll say
big
that.
potential. Yeah, big question mark.
But we're not going anywhere with this offense if this offensive line can't be half decent. We kept talking this offseason about, if I get our defense into the top 15 of the NFL, that'll be great. Or the mid part of the NFL, it'll be great.
Yeah.
It's the fact of the matter that we need this offensive line to do that. Like,
yeah,
we have talent in other positions. But what I will say tonight changed my opinion on. We need to stop the conversation of big contracts for DK and for Geno, but mainly in my point, and I have, been a Geno guy. Geno has not had a signature moment in my regard of a game where he has won versus a top tier talented team. He's beat a Lions team. Fine. Lions have been kind of a decent team. This is kind of last year, a little bit to this year is the first time they've actually been a team that we considered a Super Bowl contender. Dallas last year, the defense in that, we couldn't seal that game. He hasn't beat the 49ers yet.
No.
That's the game he needs to win. He needs
That's
to
a big monkey on
team.
his back. And I think it's getting heavier and heavier for him. So, like he comes out, he almost looks tight again. Like he's missing. He was missing the easy throws.
When he missed JSN on that under in the first half, it was like
that's no excuse.
It was a pro.
And he had time there. You look at the replay, he had time. You can talk about the O-line. There was some and then and also the pick, the first pick. There no need for that, right? We were in field goal range. That's one where you say you take care of the football, and if we come out of there and we're the first team to put up points, that's a win. And then you let your defense come on and put some pressure on Purdy. But again, it gets the Niners feeling good. Like, okay, we picked them. Let's go.
I'm going to throw up one question right now, or one statement by one of the viewers right now. Long live Diva King. Geno's had 4 excellent games, 1 okay game, 1 bad game. Got to chill with the emotional response. I'm not just looking at Geno's season this year. I'm looking at last year and the year before with that. Geno, love him to death. I love his story, but Geno Smith has proven tonight he can't win the big game that you need him to win. He doesn't show up. He shows up against
he puts some drives together, but and then the next thing you know, he does something stupid, right? Like
the pick tonight. We're moving the ball.
We're down by 6 points. Well, or even the second pick. We're down by 6. Again, we have a chance to take the lead in a crucial moment. They're bad picks. Yeah.
They're not like, it got deflected at the line and a linebacker picked it off, or it hit the receiver in the hands and it popped out. Literally throwing it, overshooting Tyler Lockett in double coverage, and then on top of that, you underthrow DK. Like,
I know.
They're bad.
He had a lot of bad throws today.
He's throwing a pick in every game.
He had a lot of bad throws today, and even when DK torched that guy down the field, and then the play, not the play-by-play guy, the color commentator, he's like blaming DK, and it's like, he's got to come back. The dude's running 30 miles an hour down the field, expecting the ball to be in front of him. You can't. What is that, right? That's all on Geno there. You gotta hit him. He did have a nice ball to Tyler, and that, to me, that was their best drive of the game. It was a nice mix of run and it hit Tyler on a big third down, and then Kenny just determined to score. You knew it was going to happen. It was a beautiful drive, but then then they come out with throws the pick, after the defense is stepping up a little bit. The one thing I'll say is this team fights. I'm not going to just be all doom and gloom. Like, this team is fighting. You can tell DK wants to win. These guys are tired of losing to the 49ers. The guys that have been around here, Lockett, DK, Gino's putting way too much pressure on himself. And like you said, well, that if you're putting too much pressure on yourself, but it equates to you just being tight and throwing the ball like you are, that's not a good sign. And I'm reading some of the comments, about body language stuff and attitude. Yeah, like it's a thing, man. Like, it's definitely a thing where, like, I love the competitiveness, but when you're banging the iPad on your head 5 times, that to me is just total frustration. Like, I don't
Yeah.
know if I can beat these guys. And I don't have an answer to this, no matter who's calling the plays. And I want to reiterate, I'm going to let you chime in. I want to reiterate too, the coaching, yes. Guys, let's not talk about any type of coaching like Grubb's an idiot or McDonald doesn't know it. Like, they've played 6 games. And like you said, to your point, guys, if you've been listening to Bryce, there's this personnel to carry over. Mike can't just inherit everything and then you expect magic to. It's got to be a case like it might take time, might take an off season, and it might take 2 off seasons.
Yep.
Like, we might be a lot more competitive next year because they might overall, like, look, this is a live reaction show, so there's going to be some emotions. We try not to. And look, if they somehow turn around the second half of the season, but if the trend continues like this against good, better teams, there could be a bigger overhaul of rosters than we think. Like you said, talking about Gino's contract, DK contract, and we talked about quarterbacks in the offseason, about drafting a guy. We had guys like Rob Staten on the show. You got to just go get a guy. If you see something, if you see a big arm like a Josh Allen-esque, just pick him. You don't have to hit. You don't marry him for 20 years or 10 years. Go draft another guy the next year. But get a guy. Like, we need to have a guy. And like, listen, we both like Gino. But how many guys numerously and fans chiming in? What's the thing with Gino? Yeah, I like him. He's good. I don't see him hosting a Lombardi Trophy. Like, that's not a good thing to say after. That means he's solid enough for now.
I think what they've got to do, and this is where it's going to be interesting, and this is where I think Sam Howell really does become a player in next year's plans is, and I'm just going to put 2 up here from someone that's chimed in. We've got Seahawks Media. Interesting title. Question in the offseason. Do you think the Seahawks should get a new QB and either get Rodgers or Wilson before he retires as a Hawk? I don't think they'll go after Rodgers or Wilson. I don't know if it's to get a new QB in the sense of a free agent. I think the next quarterback Seattle brings in will be a draft pick. That is what they will do. And Seahawks Media comes back with another one here. Fix the offense first and get a new QB afterwards. I think that's kind of going to have to be the play. I think, like I said,
line.
You're going to have to go and get the line. But what I want to see John Schneider start doing is there needs to be an adoption of the Green Bay Packers method.
Yes, I agree 100%.
And that's something that we're missing here. And I think the NFL in a whole is missing it too, is the true development of quarterbacks. You look at why Green Bay's consistently been a better team year in and year out for 30 years now. Realistically, you think of Green Bay from when they had Brett Favre. Yes, they'd have the odd down year, but they had Brett Favre. And during the time Brett Favre was the quarterback in Green Bay, I can list off all the NFL starting quarterbacks that came out of Green Bay because they drafted them, developed them, and then they'd ship them off. Or if the guy was good enough to beat out Favre, like Aaron Rodgers was, he became the quarterback. They drafted Matt Hasselbeck. They drafted Aaron Brooks. They drafted Doug Peterson. They drafted Ty Detmer. They drafted Mark Brunell. Like, all those guys went off at one point or another and started in the NFL for other teams. And then at the time, they went and got Aaron Rodgers. And then when you got Aaron Rodgers, then they went and got Jordan Love. But they were always taking quarterbacks. They were always.
But you know what's funny about that? With the Jordan Love, they take Jordan Love. Remember, people are shaking their head. Why would you draft this guy? And it's the same. It's no different than this year when Atlanta drafted Penix. What are you doing? You just signed Kirk Cousins. Well, how old's Kirk?
Yeah.
And like to your point, it's like let's let these guys develop. You think it's not a good idea that Penix gets to sit behind a veteran like Kirk Cousins and learn the system and be in the system, be in the NFL? Like that's the thing. You talk about like, okay, yeah, he's a great quarterback in college. He's around college kids. You get to the league, you're around grown men who all can play this game.
Mhm.
So, it could be a little tough for some guys to just get thrown in the fire. Bryce Young, latest example. Oh, Bryce sucks. Well, let's see. How is he set up for success? A terrible Carolina team. It makes no sense. And I get it. Like it's a win now league and you got to win and we need there's pressure from the owners and all this, but some organizations just know how to do it. And like you said, Green Bay knows how to do it. I don't know. You and I stress, we had guys on the show, a couple guys adamant about he needs to draft a guy and not to replace Geno right now. You and I thought, and we had some credible sources saying they probably would have taken Anthony Richardson last year because it would have been a perfect scenario. You sit behind the vet. Geno's good. He's serviceable. But again, you always have to look for the next guy. Here's Richardson. Now he's ready to go after 3 years or whatever. And now that's what you want. And we were talking about guys like maybe Spencer Rattler, whoever it is, bring in a guy. Just have a dude here in the wings. And if he's not working out, okay, like you said, draft another guy. And we've seen it. Arizona had what's his name? Josh Rosen. And they figured out pretty quick, you know what? And they admit it. It's okay. It's okay. Yeah, it's okay to admit, you know what? We missed on that pick. It's all good. Here's another guy.
The Seahawks need to take a bite out of the apple this year.
Bite it. You need to.
They need to because they're going to get the luck, I think, in some respects of the teams that are going to finish in the top bracket for the top 10 picks. I don't think they're going to need quarterbacks. They've already taken that bite and got their guy.
Exactly.
There's a chance for Seattle to get somebody this year. But moving off from the fact that I'm going to say this, Geno laid an egg tonight, and Geno is off. He is off mentally between the ears, and I think it starts, as much as people didn't say that it or wanted to say that it had anything to do with his camp going to John Schneider this offseason and when they were in Tennessee about a contract, I think there's something going on there that is underlying this. Regardless if it's a big underline, but I think it's there because the way he's acting, his body language, the DK and the way DK is acting, there's some sort of issue going on, and I don't know what it is, but that's something that we'll table for another point in time. But to flip this a little bit to the defensive side, I don't know where they start to fix this because there is issues throughout that defense. And what I'll say at this point is I don't want to see Rayshon Jenkins on the field anymore at safety. He is a goddamn liability. His one big play this year is the fumble return. Let me see Kobe Bryant out there. Let me see Kayvon Wallace out there more as the true other safety to Julian Love. And get Jerome Baker off the field and put Tyrese Knight out there.
A little more Tyrese Knight would be nice.
I want to see Tyrese Knight play. Like Jerome Baker missed Purdy on that first drive out of the end zone for them after we threw that pick. He had Purdy and he took a horrible angle and Purdy beat his ass to the sideline. Then he doesn't cover Kittle down on
the Kittle one was bad.
Yep. And his run fits.
Yeah.
Like it's, you even look at Mason's big run there. Rayshon Jenkins is literally there to make the tackle and he's one-on-one and just gets freaking juked out of his shorts. It's like, what is this guy still doing on the field? You want to have him as a depth safety? Cool. That's what he is. Put Kobe Bryant out there and let Kobe Bryant go see if he can do something. Like this little gap they've got between now and the Atlanta game, because you got this mini bye.
Got a nice 10 days, yeah.
You need to honestly start evaluating these guys. You are in 6 games now. 8 games.
That's 6. That's and around, we talk about 6 to 8 is kind of where you start knowing what this team is. Yeah, I know it's a brand new scheme, so you're going to get these guys time, but just as far as personnel is concerned, right? Kind of know what you got.
Exactly. And that's where, I'll put it this way. If Seattle going into the bye is 2 or 3 games under 500, so that means they lose a couple more here. I think coming out of the bye in week 10, Sam Howell will be the starting quarterback. If the wheels fall off that much between now and the week 10 bye, I could see there seriously being a contemplation of there being, hey, let's see what we've got. If this shit keeps going on, and people may chew me out on this and say I don't know what the hell I'm talking about, but as a coach myself, if things aren't working and I've got a young guy in the wings that I got to see play because I've got decisions to make when it comes to money, I'm not going to wait because Geno Smith's going to throw whatever he's going to do and have a, conniption fit or whatever it is because he got benched. Like, I got to start making decisions on this franchise. Pete Carroll is not here anymore.
Yeah.
And, we'll have to see how this kind of looks going forward. But like you said earlier, it's going to probably take year 3 is when we'll see this true rendition of Mike McDonald's team. Here's another one from True Drew Sports. Do you think Hal is the future? I would say I'm not sold on that. I'd say I've got to see what Hal can do.
Exactly.
But I will say this, I don't know if Hal being the starter in 2025 is so far out of the question anymore. I think that's a real viable option for John Schneider and Mike McDonald because it all depends. It all depends what direction they want to go.
I want to say this is that, people might be listening to this, be like, man, these guys are overreacting, man. Okay. Like, look, you guys were just talking about Geno and all this kind of stuff. Like, yeah, but it's a bigger sample size. We've had 2 seasons prior, and we said, look, Geno had the first season, he had a good start, then he fizzled, and then he had a bad start, and then he came on. Let's see him put a full season together. Now what we're seeing is sort of what we've been seeing, right? Where it's like you had a good game, or you had some good drives, or you kind of put some offense together against Detroit, but then you threw some picks. I'm not talking about Detroit because those ones were just desperation. Let's just try to. But today was an example of like, are you focused completely? Are you like, you got to know the situations. Like I said, when you come out of the gate and throw that double coverage pick with Tyler Lockett, I'd be a little more okay if that was DK going up, high pointing, trying to in a double team. If you're gonna Tyler Lockett, you're not seeing it. Like that's when you're in scoring position. So it's those kind of things. Brock Purdy, and I know he's had some turnovers this year, but he wasn't doing that. And I don't like Brock Purdy. I wouldn't want Brock Purdy. I wouldn't want to pay Brock Purdy $50 million. And to me, I'm going to handcuff my franchise a little bit. But you and I have talked about like we only feel the top so many guys are worth that, and the rest, hey man, we'll move on somewhere else. Because really, like you said, you got to be those game changer guys that Geno just and people again could be like, well, look how many comeback games Geno had. Again, that just sort of clouds what we're seeing. And again, we're not bashing Geno. I think Geno Smith's a good quarterback. But again, when people say Geno Smith's a good quarterback, but I don't see him hoisting Lombardi trophy, at the end of the day, that's the goal. And I'm not saying that's the goal this season because that's not a realistic goal. But again, you have to say, you know what, this guy, like Josh Allen, I say Josh Allen, you look for a guy like that in the draft, big arm. He was kind of a mess coming out of college a little bit. But again, he had these intangibles. And I'm not saying, you could draft another guy like that and he could totally be a bust. But you're taking a shot on some intangible guys that you can say, I can see this guy, and then he comes to the league. There's certain guys in the NFL right now you can say, I could see hoisting Lombardi trophy. Josh doesn't have a Lombardi, but you could see it. There's certain guys. Now, when you say that you can't see it with Geno, to me, that's kind of a stopgap and a solid guy for your organization. But like you said, there's some steps to be made before you can say, well, let's bring another quarterback and everything's going to be good. No, I think what we're saying is John needs to just go get a guy. Like, go up to the podium and hear a quarterback's name announced. And you and I really thought that was going to be the case this year. Then we took a step back and said, well, we brought Sam in, so okay, I guess. But I don't know, man. Like, I just think that, like, why not? You took DJ James and you cut him. So, like, draft a quarterback. Yeah, that's all I'm saying. Draft a quarterback. Take a freaking Spencer Rattler, who's starting this weekend, by the way. I'm just saying that take a chance. Like guys have said, just go out and grab a guy.
Yeah, this is again, like, it's an emotional reaction show. This is what it's here for. It's for us
Right.
to go on how we feel about things. We've got a comment in here. If anything, this is an underreaction. um,
Well, hey, yeah. I mean, look, there's some people that are pissed. Like,
yep, no,
imagine you paid
100%.
for a ticket. Imagine you paid for it. Imagine you went to the last 2 home games, New York and now tonight. I mean, again, you and I talked about this, and we haven't really talked about it much on the show right now. The Lumen Field coming into our house was meaningful. Like, man, you were scared to come in here. Teams again, there's no home field advantage at all. Like, we're not winning the false starts. There's no advantage to this. And to me, this place is going to get quieter like it has been. So to me, that's if you were at the game, like, dude, I mean, I'd be more upset because it's just a bad showing. It's a bad performance. It's sloppy. Today there was some good things you liked, but overall, like, listen, if we don't take it to the house on that kick return, that really got the spark going. We had 3 points at that time. We needed that more than some people might think. Like, that really got things kind of like, okay. Because before that, man, like, it was dead. I think what was it, 20-3 or 23-3?
Yeah, it
It
would
was
have
a
been
20-point
23
game.
to 3 at that point.
23
Yeah,
to 3. So, dude,
there's
like,
just
when you look at it like that, it was about to be a beatdown.
honestly, man, in my opinion, it was one. Like, it was a beatdown. We got beat down again. We really did. I get the score doesn't
But we beat
reflect
we
that.
beat
We
our we
fought.
beat ourselves down.
Yeah, but that's
The you know what
there's
I
just
mean?
nothing. There's
But
nothing.
that's the deflating thing about it. That's what's deflating. If Brock Purdy came out here and just put on a show, I'd be better about it. Like, I feel better.
So
Even
here's
though
an interesting point. True Drew Sports, the reason it gets quiet is because of the defense. It gets hard to scream for several minutes consecutively. The defense isn't giving fans a break.
yeah,
He's
agree.
not wrong. Like, he said he went to the
100%
Giants
agree.
game. Like, our defense back in the LOB when it was so loud, and I know people hate this. We're going and talking about the LOB. The difference was the LOB gave you a reason to be on your feet, to be
Yeah.
engaged, to feel the vibe. And
Yeah.
flip to the other side on offense, beast mode gave you a reason to be on your feet. And that's the thing that I think is kind of missing. There's no attitude. Like, Witherspoon doesn't even seem to have the attitude he had last year in a lot of ways.
Not what we thought right now. Yeah, this is a weird start for him. And I still love the dude,
Oh,
but
100%.
I agree with what you're saying.
Like,
He needs
it's
that
just kinda
Najee
gone.
Harris throw him out of the bounds. You know, we haven't seen even that yet, like, where he's looking, you know what I mean? And I
Yeah.
agree. It's a weird start for him, like, you know, and it could be a case where he's just kind of playing differently in this scheme. But yeah, this home field, like you said, I agree, man. Like, if you're yelling at the top of your lungs, knowing in the back of your mind, like, man, they just might run it down our throats. That gets tough to get extra loud and throughout the whole game, man. Like,
So
for real.
here's an interesting thing. Tyler Lockett. So Greg Bell just tweeted this out about 52 minutes ago. I guess it was during the press conference. Tyler Lockett says Seahawks need to focus more on their walkthrough practice
I heard that.
on details such as lining up correctly. Many of their avoidable penalties in this game can be contributed to that. So how do we have it where they're not focusing in freaking walkthrough?
Yeah, it's a
Like,
walkthrough.
that you've got veterans that aren't freaking paying attention, play the young kids. I saw Corbin Smith put out a tweet, who runs Locked On Seahawks, saying, hey, it's time to start playing the youngsters and let them go. Let the youngsters
Might happen.
play.
It might
I
happen,
think
man.
it's going to have to happen. I've got a feeling there's going to be some sort of change. And I said this to you, I think it was on our last show or 2 shows ago, that I think there's a good chance Haynes and LeMaya start getting more run at guard positions. Because again, Bradford and Tomlinson are not cutting it. And I get Haynes whiffed on his block with Fred Warner. But you're asking a rookie to take on the considerably top inside linebacker in football on a
league.
screen and open field. And when I'm watching that play as it's developing, I'm watching Tomlinson, who's a veteran, run right by that, and I get it's a screen and he's looking downfield. But if I know that my running mate's got Fred Warner and there's a good chance Fred Warner can leak through this, I might give Fred Warner a chip and then go to my second level. But he doesn't. He runs right on by. Like, there's just no communication at all on what they're trying to accomplish. And man, there's a lot to come out of tonight, but I think it's going to be a little bit of digesting it. I think there's going to be a lot of stuff that's going to come out throughout Twitter and whatever. It'll be interesting to hear Mike Mack's, 7:10 show tomorrow. But yeah, like the Seahawks have a lot of things to work out because there's some issues with Geno, I think, between the ears and maybe even in the chest on what's going on. There's stuff with DK. There's shit that needs to be figured out with defense and special teams. I just, man, like, I'm not at a loss for words, but it's crazy how those first 3 games, we really might be able to chalk this up to they played bad teams with bad quarterbacks. And now that they're starting to play teams with competent quarterback play, you're starting to see who this team may really be, which is you're still a 9-8 team at best.
Sure. I mean, you saw, like, we talk about going to New England and it's a road game and they got to go back east pretty far, but they gave up a lot on the ground, right? And that was sort of like a little bit of an indication, like, okay, this is, what do we expect? It's the second game. We get it. We came out of there with a win and that's good. But like, I even look at tonight and you can say what you want about the Niners, and yeah, they got some great players, but they're missing a lot of dudes. Mm-hmm. They're missing guys. They're missing Ward on the corner today. Their safety went out. They don't have CMC. Brock Purdy sort of like, he was turnover happy a little bit before. And again, we just, to me, I don't know if it would have mattered if the Broncos came in our house tonight, the way they've been playing now. They won a couple games. I don't know if we beat them. Like, I don't know even if it has to do with, like, it's the Niners, because the Niners, like you said, aren't the Niners right now. And I think we just played such a sloppy game in all 3 stages. Like, yes, there was some good things, like, in all 3 stages. Like, we fumbled a kickoff and then we took one to the house. Cool. We threw a couple picks, but then Geno put together a beautiful drive. But there's no consistency. We're not putting a game together. Like you said, Tyler came out and said, man, with the details of the walkthrough. The examples when they hit DK on a bomb late in the game and then illegal procedure, right? That's walkthrough shit. Like, yep. and that's the thing. That stuff to me that's not a personnel thing. That stuff is mental error, not focusing. Like, you know what I mean? And I get the personnel stuff. So, but the other stuff, man, it's just like, yeah. So there, I think it's a thing.
How many times do you think? How many times do you think Brock Purdy was?
Go for it.
All good. How many times do you think Brock Purdy was sacked tonight?
So go ahead. So sorry, say it again.
How many times do you think Brock Purdy was sacked tonight?
0.
Yeah. How many times do you think Geno was sacked? Once.
Well, I was just gonna say a lot more pressure on Geno, right?
But he was only sacked once.
I know.
But how many? So here's the other thing that's hilarious that I'm looking at here. Who do you think ran more plays between us and the 49ers?
Technical issues there. Sorry. Go again.
Yeah, no worries. Who do you think ran more plays, us or the 49ers on offense?
Well, I know time of possession they had us.
Yeah.
But play-wise,
we ran 73 plays. They ran 61.
I was going to say, yeah. Well, because look at their plays. I mean, they had the Debo, like a lot of broken shit. And then, of course, they seal it off with some dude I've never heard of in my life when we needed a big-time stop. Runs pretty much, 80 yards. Like,
yep.
It was so deflating, man. And that's the thing when it's like you talk about personnel, but then you talk about, like, that was some of the Pete stuff that, and again, this has nothing to do with Mike, because you and I, listen, guys, people have got to understand, we believe in McDonald. We think he's going to be a good head coach. I think he is a good head coach, and I think it's going to take time. And that's what we've talked about. And it's hard because you want to see a difference when you have a new coach and you fired everybody and you want instant results. And even for us, it's hard, but you can still see things on the field that shouldn't maybe be happening at this level, and it is. And again, it's sure maybe it's some things Mike has to learn how to, and Grubb is going to learn. Like
Mhm.
it's a learning curve for Grubb, and I think we like some of the things we're seeing from him. But he's gonna be a learning curve for these guys. But that doesn't mean that we don't want like we're less. Mike signed a 6-year deal. That doesn't mean he's here for 6, but
He's here for 3 at least.
there's a reason. Yeah, it's here to build something, and building something takes time. And we just didn't think like the clunker on Sunday was was bad. We saw some of the same things tonight, especially running down our throats at certain times. But the sloppiness. I'll say this: I want to put these 3 games in 10 days behind us, and hopefully these guys can, like you said, maybe we'll see a mix up on personnel, some young guys. We have 10 days before we play in Atlanta, who's playing some decent football. We have time. And so at least they have that extra time off, get rested, and we'll go from there. But like what we've seen, like it's some of it. Listen, that usually you play 3 games in 21 days, so it's a lot of football. I will give them that. So some of the sloppiness that could be attributed to it. I'm not making excuses, but listen, man, it's NFL football. I mean, shit, like 3 games in 10 days, a lot. So some of that, sure, but the focus is what is that bugs me. The sloppiness, the
Mhm.
focus aspect when you're giving up those shitty penalties at home. That's tough to swallow. But I will say you got 10 days. It's a work in progress. It's all we can do, man. You got to take it a game at a time, and hopefully we see some type of strides. And maybe you're right. Maybe we do have a different guard in there. Um, but I will say this: there's more questions now.
Oh, yeah.
More questions now in a short period of time. And maybe there'll be a little less if we another month from now, but that's what you and I have said in the offseason. How is this team looking in November and December? And we might get to November and be like, this team's a long ways away. Or we might get there and be like, okay, you know what? We're getting there, but there's definitely some personnel that definitely needs to be changed. I hope it's that, because I don't want to be left with a million questions.
I hope this turns into a 2011 season for us,
Sure.
where you see that they hit that halfway point like the Seahawks did that 2011 year. They make some changes. They start playing the younger guys like Sherman and stuff, and they start to build that defense, that identity of what they're going to be. Right now, this team doesn't have an identity. They don't. It's not defense. It's not offense. Right now, it's an identity of a mess. It's like a bunch of Lego pieces spread out all over the ground, and you're trying to put it together without the instructions right now.
Yeah.
The thing that I'll say, though, is Seaside Joe, who is on Twitter. I suggest anyone that's a Seahawks fan, follow him. He's got great stuff he puts out. He just put out a tweet. Gino's first 6 games, he's thrown 251 passes, completed 173 for 1778 for yards, 6 touchdowns, 6 picks. That puts him on a pace for 490 completions to 710 attempts for 5,000 yards with 17 TDs and 17 picks. Do you know what's really funny about that? Sam Howell's 2023 season that everyone gave him shit for last year, 388 completions to 612 throws, 394 yards, 3,946 yards, 21 TDs, and 21 interceptions. Sam Howell led the NFL in attempts last year. Gino's on pace for 90 more attempts than that.
Yeah. Wow.
So without the run game, which we, again, cannot get going because this offensive line, we were at 2.6 yards a carry tonight. That's not going to make an offensive coordinator stay with it. You
No,
have to find a way to fix that. That's on him and us.
to his credit, he did stay with it,
He did. He did stay with
so
it, but
I get,
it
but I
wasn't
also think
effective.
Mike had a meeting with him on Monday and said, "Come in here, we need to talk." I just
Yeah,
want to address this real quick. Look, hey man, I know Rattler's starting because of injury, but the point is he's starting, like he's showcasing. I'm
yeah.
not saying he's going to take over as a starter, but maybe they think, hey, we might have something later on with this kid. And that's the point. They drafted a guy, and it was a later. Rattler went later than we thought. I can't remember where he went. How late did Rattler go? The point is, you're not giving up
Ooh,
much
he was a
capital.
5th or 4th round
Yeah,
guy,
yeah,
I
he
think.
was. I think he was a fifth round. So it's like you're still bringing in a guy with maybe some upside, and that's what we're talking about here. Whereas Seattle, like, sure, how they made the trade and stuff like that, but historically, John Snyder hasn't even done that. He hasn't even brought in a guy in the fourth round. But like I said, you bring in a guy like DJ James, you cut him, like, take a stab at a late round QB, whatever. Just bring a guy in the building. But I really think they got to go better than that. I don't want a fourth or fifth round guy. I want a guy that is maybe your future. And if you don't hit, then I'm cool with that. If we bring in a guy and he's a bust, fine. I mean, look, man, we know the statistics. We know how many first round busts there are, but that doesn't mean you don't go draft a guy. Look how many teams in the NFL have drafted first quarterbacks in the first round, except us. Like, and I'm not saying like, okay, this year was not the year because we were picking 16 and all the top guys, all the teams ahead of us needed a QB. But there's been other years where we just pass. We're not even thinking, no, we're not going to do quarterbacks. And I just think it's a thing where you definitely, there's going to be questions. We'll see what happens, man, the rest of the year. Like you said, who knows, man? Like you said, Gino's done this before. He's a solid guy. So he comes in and he balls out the next month. And then that's sort of where we've been with him the last couple seasons, where it's like you think it's oh shoot, now Gino just put together a nice few games. Because again, I like Geno Smith, man. He seems like, first of all, I seems like a good dude. Seems like a down to earth guy who's went through a ton of adversity, and I do like a lot of things he brings to the table. But I do think he's gonna have limitations for you as a franchise overall. And so you have to keep planning for the next guy. If Sam's that guy, okay. But like you said, we got to see him. We can't just be like, yeah, well, he tore us up last season. You kind of got to see him in your offense a little bit. So gonna be interesting to
It
see. You want
it's gonna be interesting. I don't think Sam's gonna come in right away and start anytime soon.
I don't either.
I think this is gonna be if the season gets away from Seattle, and I mean like really gets away where we're maxing out maybe as a 6-win team, there's gonna be a point where they're gonna turn to Sam and they're gonna go to it if they get to that point. But like to wrap tonight's show up, man, like there's questions. I don't know if we're going to get the answers by Atlanta. Hopefully we get some of them, but there needs to be some changes coming because you've now gone on a 3-game win streak to a 3-game losing streak the minute you played teams with competent quarterback play and decent defenses, and you need to figure some of this shit out. So,
Yeah, and I'll leave it at this too, real quick too. I'll also say the 3-game losing streak, and it wasn't like we just got beat by better teams. We didn't play good.
no.
Like it was more of on it was more on us. Like it's like you beat yourself, sort of. What they say. It was like it wasn't like first of all, New York. I mean, come on, and then tonight it wasn't the same Niners. The only game was okay. Detroit, this is a Super Bowl potential team, and we fought. So we came out of that game. We're like, yeah, you know what? Okay, offense was clicking a little bit later in the second half, and shore some things up, but and I will say, I'll leave it at this and I'll let you final thoughts, but I will say, and it's not an excuse, but the 3 games in 10 days, I just want to put behind us now because again, man, NFL football, that's a lot of games. Again, I'm not using an excuse. I'm not saying there's not questions, but I'm going to say, I'm myself, take a step back, enjoy Sunday, watch the other games. These guys hopefully will kind of put their heads together, work on some stuff, maybe some do pro. They got 10 days. So that's going to be a good indication when they play and what we see in Atlanta. If nothing's changed, if nothing changes, and we see what we've seen the last 3, then again, that's those 3 games in 10 days doesn't matter. Hey, that's just the way you're looking. And that's, you know what I mean? You're going to see that when you play the Falcons because you got it all the time in the world now to get healthy and get things right. And so if they come out and play sort of similar, you might be an indication what you might see majority of the season.
No, agreed, man. So it'll be interesting to see how these next couple of days go. But just want to thank our listeners that joined in, put in a bunch of great questions and comments throughout the chat here. And we've got a couple cool episodes coming up over the next couple of days. Tomorrow, we're going to be recording a show with the Seahawkers podcast with Brendan Schultz and Adam Ambrit. So they're coming on. And then we've also got Dana O'Gorman coming back to the show next week to do our preview show for the Falcons game. So don't want to miss those guys. So make sure you got your notifications, your subs turned on, and all that good stuff. And then also, guys, don't forget, we've got our apparel store that's opened up. HawkZoneRundown.com. Go check that out. There's cool hats. Ryan's been sporting a couple of them. I've ordered a few myself. There's some hoodies. And we're going to be dropping a new logo and shirt on that in the coming week here. So make sure you check all that stuff out, guys. But yeah, man, it was a tough game again, Ryan. But hopefully we've kind of hit bottom and we start going back in the right direction and in that win column.
Yeah, I agree. It's a bit of time off. So, guys, it's tough to have a lot of time off after some losses like this. But you know what? Let's put it behind us. Let's get back to business. Enjoy some games Sunday that aren't involving the Hawks. And, yeah, and then we'll get ready for that Atlanta game. So that's it for us. Go Hawks.
Go Hawks.